So this is Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, a game. This is for the Sega Mega Drive. I'm going to be doing some stuff with the modified emulator, but I wanted to just show you first how this game works, just to put it into a bit of context what I'll be doing. Story, not really important. We're fighting Robotnik's robots by playing this game of matching beans. You might recognise this game as Puyo Puyo, which is its original Japanese title. Kirby's Avalanche is the name it was given when it was ported to the SNES. What I'm doing is I'm building up these groups of beans. So I'll show you, well, if I make a group of 4 beans of the same colour, so these 4 blues, they'll go away, they'll allow those yellow beans to connect, and that allows the next colour beans to connect. So basically you want to match 4 of a colour, and that makes the beans disappear. So here we go, we've got 4 of a colour. But if you do it so that you drop, I clear these reds and that causes the yellows to clear, that's a chain reaction, and that causes bad beans to be sent over to your opponent, which will make it harder for them to connect stuff up. The longer your chain reaction, the more amount of junk that you send to your opponent. So what you want to do is you want to build up these combos, you want to build up these chains of matching colours, where dropping one set of colours will land into another set of colours. But you want to do it in such a way that you want to do it fast enough that your opponent doesn't do the same to you, basically. That's kind of core to it, really. So, for example, I'm going to clear these purple beans, which clears the yellow beans, which clears the green beans. And that should be enough to do a lot of nastiness. Guys, so he's got a lot of work to do to climb down. What you don't want to happen is you don't want your stack of beans to reach the top of the screen. Once your stack of beans reaches the top of the screen and no more beans can come out, that's you having lost the game. So as you can see on the right hand side of the screen, I'm just about to beat the computer player. So I'm playing on the easiest difficulty. These are the easiest characters in that run. But I'm going to be changing up things just a little bit. In my version, I am going to be taking away the colour. Obviously this is a game all about colour, but the beans are differently shaped. So what I'm going to be doing, I've made myself a mod for the emulator, which what it does is it randomly selects 3 colours from the palette. And every colour will be, instead of drawing that colour, it will draw the sort of random colour from the palette instead. So I'm going to stop playing now, and so here we are. We have a very limited set of colours now. It looks a bit kind of like playing on the Game Boy, doesn't it? It's basically chosen 3 random numbers for each colour and decide one of them randomly to each colour in the palette. So hopefully we shouldn't have cases. It may sometimes do something where it chooses multiple of the same colour at once. It looks kind of like a bad Commodore 64 port or something. I can just about tell the difference between the colours here, so that's nice. I mean, I guess what I was expecting to happen, and this is from, I have played the Game Boy version of Puyo Puyo, and what happened with that is, oh Jesus. It changes the colours every half hour. Half hour? It changes the colours every 30 seconds or something. So what I kind of experienced playing the Game Boy version of this game was that while it was still possible to play, because you could, wow, I think that opponent just killed himself there. On the Game Boy version, it was kind of possible to play, but it was harder because you couldn't play it at a glance. It was hard to tell at a glance what, you know, where you're building. So it was really hard to build chains because it was kind of hard to remember where you were. I'm expecting that should be my experience now. But the reason I wanted to do this the way I'm doing it now is because I want to see, does that experience change if you spend like an hour experiencing it. So one thing that is making this difficult is you kind of can't... It's hard to tell at a glance which beans are which, but also, so it's hard to kind of, you have to kind of memorize what things you'd stacked on top of each other. But also, because of the random colorings, moving beans and sort of beans, station beans, beans that are connected up, look quite different to each other. That was luck, what I just did there. But it is kind of hard to tell. Like, I've got a bunch of beans that just look black now, and there's the ones that look black and the ones that look kind of colourless. And I've got a bunch of beans which look roughly the same colour as the background now. And that is really quite complicated. I thought there was a gap there. Right, let's keep going. Let's see. I want to see in an hour how far I can get through this. So it's like, yeah, I thought there were two beans there that were the same colour, and it turns out they weren't. I'm hoping that I've just put beans of the same colour next to each other. Oh god, this is pretty horrific. Okay, I thought those were matching beans. I guess there is something that's slightly harder about this compared to the Game Boy version of the game. Is that I'm having to concentrate really hard. No deliberate attempt has been made to make the beans identifiable from each other. So, like on the Game Boy version of the game, they're sort of distinctly different shapes. On this one, they aren't necessarily distinctly different. Like, the shapes may be different, but they're not so different that you're definitely going to notice it. So, the garish colours are something special. Okay, I did not know that they were the same colour there. Now you see, you've got two sets of beans that look like they're the same colour, but they have a very slight difference in shape. Of course, you're not going to notice that difference in shape if... I'm going to have to burn these. You're not going to notice the difference in shape once they merge together. Two neighbouring beans, they have a little animation where they kind of get stuck together. And you're just not going to see that. It's hard enough to even make a set of 4, let alone make a chain reaction, and you really need to make at least one chain reaction to get anywhere, you know, to win any matches at all. So I'm playing on the default difficulty. I think there is a difficulty that's easier than this one, but I'm here for the challenge. So So I'm playing on normal. And I guess one thing I'm kind of looking for here is trying to figure out, will I adapt? Will I, you know... Will I start to improve at this with a bit of practice? Oh, so that was a pure guess that I had beans that were the same colour there, but I think this is going to chain reaction. Oh, it didn't. Well, that's interesting. So you got beans which are different colours, but they look like almost identical. I guess you can hear me going silent, and that's when I'm concentrating super hard. And now it's like, oh, I don't have any matches. What even is this that I am dropping in? It's funny, you get these little surprise moments where you're like, wait, they were the same colour? Like, this finally feels like the beans are identifiable from each other. Like, just for a moment. So I need to get... Can I get some of those kind of black-looking beans? And then I need the really white-looking beans, and that will make a chain reaction, I think. Oh no. Oh, that was good. That was good. Could this be enough to beat it? Probably not. But it's enough to keep me in the game, because he's going to have to fight to stay in. That was fluke, that one. I did not realise I had a chain going there. I hope this colour palette stays, and just as I say that, the colour palette goes away. I might just need to wait this one out. I mean, maybe that's just, like, if you stay in long enough, you haven't made enough groups of 3 that you can start to make combos by accident. 2 robots down. I guess it is easier to match together the beans that look like beans, rather than, like, if you can identify them as separate from the background, that makes a massive difference. Like, now, everything, like, the background is noisier than the beans are. It's really hard. Like, these kind of black outlined beans are quite easy to pick out, so I can say, okay, I've got a group of 3 of them there. I need to drop something in to make a group. And that should go there. And I think I've got a combo. Okay, I don't know if I've got luckier or if I've started to figure this out. I guess we'll find out the longer this goes on. Am I actually getting better? Like, I've dropped a bunch of stuff there and I kind of can't see what it is. That one was fortunate because they were kind of right next to each other. Kind of knew exactly what I was trying to... Oh god, there's a bunch... I can see, I saw as it chained, there's a bunch of beans that have just turned totally transparent. But I can also see that I've got kind of a combo waiting, which I'd not even noticed. So if I can get in there and get that... Oh, okay, no, I can't, because there was a bean in the way. But this one I can make. Wasn't enough to win, but enough to stay in the game and Honestly, I feel kind of proud of myself for actually making that, even though I can't tell if that was a fluke or not. What colour bean is supposed to go in this spot? I don't actually know. There's a group of 3 beans connected together, but I don't know what colours I'm actually trying to match up. But I guess I've been going long enough that I kind of just need to wait it out and hope that he destroys himself. Maybe I spoke too soon. But it's kind of interesting how they start to look kind of transparent, just because they're the same colour as the background. They read as transparent, like to a human eye. Like that's how I'm interpreting them. That's kind of interesting. Stage 4. I guess I'm trying to figure out, like, am I starting to learn this? Like, and when you see me, you know, I've been playing the, playing the games, you know, the mods with Sonic, and with those ones, oh god, I have no idea why the colour started flashing there. Oh, it's coconuts. Oh, that's going to... I hope I get through this level quickly. The character has a light bulb on his head which flashes, and that animation is causing the whole screen to flash. So I guess probably skip forward if you want to avoid subjecting yourself to this. Okay, at least it means he's angry. That's, if the character's angry, that means... then that means I'm doing well. I mean, I'm not consciously aware of doing anything differently yet, because... I mean, maybe just what I'm doing right now is concentrating on making groups of 3. And as long as I make group of 3, eventually I will get a combo. And now I'm focusing on making combos and sort of thinking too much about it. Now I'm like, no, just... See, I don't see any matches there. So, I mean, if I consciously make an effort to do that, what happens? God, I've got colours I can't really see now. Because those, they don't match. Huh. I didn't really think that through fast enough. So yeah, right now I have 2 colours that look identical when they're falling down. Which is, even if you could see the details, you wouldn't be able to see the difference between 3 of that colour matched up. That was a kind of guess that those 2 were the same colour, but I do get a combo there because I kind of anticipated that. Oh. Again, messed up by colours looking similar to each other. I mean, it is... yeah. So playing on the Game Boy kind of made me realise how important being able to read a game at a glance is. You know, it does actually make a meaningful difference to, you know, your ability to... wow, oh god, all the clear beans are invisible now. It does make a difference to your ability to play the game kind of reactively if you are having to spend more time figuring out, you know, thinking in order to just, get information which you would otherwise just get from perception at a glance, because you're having to work hard, where for a player who, maybe has all of the colours, they can just see at a glance. They've got the blues and the greens in the corners of their eyes. And that made me think about, accessibility. Because, Greedy Bankers, my kind of first published game on iPhone, which is nearly 10 years ago now. That game, I added in a colorblind mode to it where you could add extra symbols on top of the color gems that you were supposed to match, and those symbols basically so that you could identify the different colors. But I think I kind of realized color is still important, and not being able to see the color, still puts you at a disadvantage. Because even if you have symbols, even if you have other supporting iconography, to help identify, in that game, that was luck. That was pure luck. In Greedy Bankers, I was using colour to tell apart different kinds of gem. In Mean Bean Machine, it's different colours of bean. Wow, another fluke. I'm doing well for fluke today. But when you're... See, I feel like I'm close to winning, so I don't want to mess up with talking. I don't think I got this. I think I'm way off. I had something going. I got like a 3 combo, like total accident. But yeah, when you are, being able to navigate a game at a glance without thinking about where am I and that, putting the symbols onto the shapes help to symbols onto the gems kind of help to an extent, but it didn't really solve the problem of it being harder for colorblind players, because ultimately they're still having to work, because the symbols need to be interpreted and kind of, you notice the similarities to them much more subtly than you notice the difference between colours. And it kind of made me realise that colour is a really important and useful tool for game making. If you can identify, between objects by colour, you can do it at a glance. But the unfortunate thing with that is not everybody has colour perception. And it's like, you've got this really useful kind of tool in terms of game making. But it's a really useful tool, but but using it limits who can enjoy your game to the fullest, Okay, that was total fluke. But maybe this is just a strategy, that the game is actually, or at least in these early levels, it's solvable just by making groups of 3 and eventually stumbling upon something good. Maybe I've had enough practice at this game that I can kind of stumble upon strategies that will work for me. So here's one where we've got a bunch of different bean colours that are the same colour as the background, and that's nasty. I can't tell these two the same colour, they were different colours. And I didn't even realise they were beans there. I'd placed them myself, but, I had to rely on memory to remember that those 2 beans were there. I think it's one of the things I tried when figuring out the colorblind mode for Greedy Bankers was taking out the color entirely. And in that game, now that's a game where, like, the gems in that game could move around the board freely. Oh wow, this is a visual treat, isn't it? The gems in Greedy Bankers could kind of move around freely, so you didn't really know. Oh, that was it. It was called Memory Mode. Yeah, I added in a mode. It was adding in the colorblind support inspired me to make a game mode called Memory Mode, where you'd see the colors of the gems when they appeared in your grid and when you picked them up. But when they were just sat there, they were always grey. So you had to remember which gems were which colour. And that was really interesting. I think what I liked about that, and that's something that's kind of stuck with me throughout game design, you know, throughout my career as a game developer ever since, is that kind of reliance on the soft skill. I love drawing upon soft skills in games, and the soft skill that I was drawing upon in that one, in the memory mode in Greedy Bankers, was memory and spatial memory, and being able to remember where you put stuff. And so that would be interesting for this if the colours appeared periodically. I wonder if that would change my approach to this mod. I guess we'll see where I get to after. After an hour, I might add that in. So again, we've got some beans which are the same colour as the background, and some beans which are the same colour as each other. And neither of these creates a kind of pleasant, winnable experience. That's another loss. But that soft skill of spatial memory, that was a really interesting thing to play with, because that is a skill and ability which exists entirely within, you know, the mind of the player playing. It's, in a way, it's not a skill that can be taught in the way that most, you know, that sort of shooting accurately and good timing can be taught for a game. Like, you can teach a player to time a specific interaction well, but you can't kind of teach them to have good timing. And I think that's the sort of, you can give a player space where they can develop strategies of memorizing where all the different gems were, or, you know, or where the different beams are in this. It's harder in this because you have to, you know, respond reactively to the board, rather than Greedy Bankers, where everything stayed still. There was no time limit except for just a general ticking clock. Whereas here, the beams fall from the sky, so you have to place them. You have like a second to deal with each set of beams, and then you have to move on to the next one. So, you know, it's not just a game of reactions. Mean Bean Machine is a game it's not just a game of thinking, it's a game of thinking quickly. You know, Mean Bean Machine, you have to think. You have to think about what you're placing and where you're placing it. I think Greedy Bankers, in its mechanics, there was time for you to just, you know, focus on memory. Anyway, another game over. I can't even remember where I was going with this thought. But yeah, no, it was that that memory isn't really a skill that can be taught. Memory of specific things can be taught, I think. But I don't think just general being good at remembering stuff is a skill that can be taught, which is nice for making particularly kind of party games, because you don't get this situation where people who've played a lot of similar games are considerably better than people who haven't. So, I think one of my favourite examples of this is the Find Me minigame in Wii Play on Nintendo Wii, where it was basically like a big moving Where's Wally that got increasingly complex as you got through the levels. And yeah, some people are better at Find Me than others, but but that's just an actual thing. That's not down to how much time have they spent playing video games. That's not down to how much time have they spent reading Where's Wally. That's just down to a natural thing inside you, or, a natural skill, which gives, people who normally wouldn't feel, oh, I'm good at video games, or I'm good at such and such a kind of game. It gives them a space, well, maybe they will be good at this one. And I nearly had a combo there, and I clubbed it. Again. So yeah, I guess the meat of this is that I find soft skills particularly interesting, and memory is an example of a particularly interesting soft skill to play with. With this, there's a kind of loose problem solving in terms of figuring out how to deal with the fact that you can't always tell what the colours are. But there's not I couldn't point to a specific best practice for how to do this, not yet. I mean, just looking for groups of three felt like a good kind of mitigating strategy, but honestly, I'm not 100% sure what I'm getting at the moment, because I'm having to concentrate very hard to do this. I'm getting there. So yeah, I guess I'm just going to play looking for groups of three now. That one's really weird because it makes it look like the grid is smaller than it actually is. And I also noticed there's two bean colours which look identical to each other now. I think they're the blue beans and the green beans, but I'm not 100% sure. So I just got messed up by that. Oh wow, those are all the same colour. That is kind of funny. It's sort of like you get that reveal of, oh okay, I was playing well. Are these good? No, those should have been the other way around. It's kind of fun having all the beans in silhouette, and now we reveal what I was actually building, and I have to hope that I can stay in the game. Oh, okay. Well, that was lucky. I mean, I'm still on the ropes. And it doesn't help right now that the... Okay, wow, that was... I was still on the rope. It didn't help that the clear beans looked roughly the same colour as the other beans, so I couldn't tell if I was connecting beans together or if they were just junk. In a way, this is surprisingly how playable it is, and I don't know if it's because I'm fluking my way through it. And that's why I like to sort of stick with these for a while to see if different strategies and approaches start to emerge. But it is really tough to tell which ones are actually going to join up with each other. I feel like I had a lot of beans connecting up with each other there, but it was really hard for me to tell which ones actually connected with me. You know, connected with each other, sorry. Oh, now that's what I call colour. Hit? No! Oh, because there's a bean in the way. I was so sure I'd connected a bunch of good stuff together. I was like, yeah, here it comes. Here comes the alley train into the winning station. And... no. But okay, that was good. I guess fluking your way to victory is valid. I mean, it might say something detrimental to the specific choice of game. Like, if it turns out, yeah, I can get through this just fine by, you know, fluking over a long enough period of time, does that suggest that there's something wrong with the game? He says before losing. And maybe this is the point where you really do need to start playing faster, and you really do need to start making bigger chains. I mean, I think this is based on the original Puyo Puyo, so, you know, Puyo Puyo 1, I guess. And because it wasn't until later that they added a mechanic where... oh god, I can see nothing. It wasn't until later that they added a mechanic where... if you had junk waiting to come down on you, and you made a chain, before sending junk to your opponent, it would clear the junk waiting to come down on you. And that's actually quite a useful mechanic, because for this, in a way, you don't need to build big combos as much as you need to be fast. You know, if you can get off a lot of short combos very quickly, you can stop your opponent from doing anything. Whereas in Puyo Puyo 2 and Puyo Pop Fever, excellent game by the way, Puyo Pop Fever, if you give your opponent lots of small bits of junk, they can, you know, they don't really mind, and they can kind of play through that while making a big combo that you can't really fight back against. So this could be to my advantage with this particular game, is that I'm going to do better with it because I'm not, you know, making small combos is actually the way that you're kind of intended to play. Because it's complicated to make a big combo, but you can kind of, if you just need to make small combos and you can fluke them fast enough, then grouping together groups of 3 is maybe just a sufficient way to play. Oh, I should not have turned that. Oh, no, that could be good, if I can figure out what color's supposed to go where. Oh, I didn't. Oh, well. No, I did not have that. I mean, I was getting close. I got a, like, combo that was 3 long, so that's quite nice. Really hard to see what colours match. It's funny, I thought I had 2 identical beams raining down there, and when they landed, they didn't match, and it was like, yo. I was basing my placement of those beans around the fact that they would match together, and then you see them just land and stay still instead of merging together, and you're like, oh, they were different colours. So I saw that was a thing that I could do, and I think... Oh wow, that was chance. And I think if I group together these sort of very white-looking beams, the diagonal ones... Nope, okay. So I thought the clear beams look identical to some of the others, except it's, you know, the other beams kind of pulse. And that's not meant to be a pun. Oh god, I can see nothing. These genuinely all look identical. And it's annoying when, particularly when you got... Early on, it feels like a bigger problem when 2 colours look very similar to each other. It's less of a problem once you've built up a bunch of trees and, you know, you can fluke a combo here and there. But yeah, fluking a combo here and there. But when they look the same as the colourless beams, the junk beams, that is really nasty. And now everything is roughly the same colour as the background. I mean, there is one colour of beam now which is literally indistinguishable from background. And that's... well, that's something. I don't think I'm going to win today. He says before doing that. And that. Oh. But maybe what this forces you to do is sort of think less about so, oh my god, this looks entirely like Chunk. When you have oh, this has gone totally out the window now. Yep, there's no way I was going to win that. Everything just turned into, like, a scrambled mess. Oh well, it changes roughly every minute, so hopefully I can survive long enough. So this I can work with, hopefully. Well, that was, again, a total fluke. Yeah, no way I'm going to win this one. So the strategy I kind of feel like I've developed of focusing on making groups of 3 rather than focusing on making big combos. Which I kind of threw away there just because it felt premature to, like, launch those. This strategy is kind of... Well, what's interesting is I've come up with this strategy that allows me to win sometimes, and it's a strategy that's not guaranteed to win, but in a way allows me to persist. It allows me to kind of cope with the challenge, rather than, you know, basically standing in for the skills that I've kind of taken away from myself with the mod. One thing, you know, I probably should say about all, you know, I've been doing these games, I've been doing these experiments mostly with Sonic, now doing with Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. These are both games I'm very good at. So, I, you know, used to play a lot of this as a kid, and then a lot of Puyo Pot Fever, as a sort of late teenager, young adult, and then when Puyo Puyo Tetris came out, I was, like, addicted to playing online. So the kind of... I guess this challenge for me is slightly different to what it would be to someone else, because, you know, I have a kind of an existing level of ability with Puyo Puyo that I kind of don't have to think about, in a way. So, I guess for a lot of players, they'd be playing this game and they'd be trying to figure out how to make combos. I have an instinctive idea of how to make combos. I don't have to think about how to make combos. I just, you know, I can just react to what's going on the screen. Yeah, I can play on gut feel. And I guess I wonder what it would be like to do these kind of play experiments with games that I'd never seen before, that I was playing sight unseen. And I guess maybe I'd have a reveal moment where I switched on the colour or something and went, oh, that's what's been going on this whole time, and maybe I had a different idea of what the game was. But yeah, I guess, you know, in these experiments where I'm looking, you know, what is happening to me physically, mentally, as I'm playing these games? How am I adapting? How am I changing my strategies? You know, what is it kind of highlighting about the way we play video games? And right now, I think that comes with the caveat is that all of these experiments have been done, you know, with this starting assumption that I already am good at the game I'm experimenting with. I mean, that's not been an intentional thing, that's... that really is just, you know, I guess... the games that have suited the challenges. You know, Sonic is a very forgiving game. That's why I've done a lot with it, not just with these mods, but, you know, I've got a stage show where I use them as events, and things like that, made custom controllers for them, for other events. Like, yeah, so... yeah, where was I going with that thought? I guess where I was going is, you know, there is a reason that there's a reason that I did the previous experiments with Sonic, and that's because Sonic's a very forgiving game. The reason I did this experiment with Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine is that Mean Bean Machine is a game about colour. So what happens when you take the colour away? But, you know, equally, I could have done this experiment with, say, Columns, which is another game all about colour. But, you know, I played Columns all of, like, twice in my life. So... part of my experience of trying to wrap my hands around that challenge would be trying to wrap my head around Columns. You know, what does good play of Columns look like? What does, you know, what is a good strategy in Columns? With this, I'm not having to figure out how to play Mean Bean Machine. So, you know, when the question is, how do you play Mean Bean Machine now meaning after all of these changes, like... It's how do you play it now that's important rather than how do you play it at all. And that does affect my experience of what these are. So I guess everything I'm, you know, discovering when I'm playing these things, you know, my hope is to sort of discover some kind of universal truths, you know? But part of the process of finding these universal truths involves accepting that there's part of what I'm doing which is not universal, which is, you know, being good at Puyo Puyo is not universal. I know, like, lots of people who, you know, basically when Puyo Puyo Tetris came out and I was recommending it to everyone, and I had plenty of friends who said they couldn't quite wrap their head around it, and I had to give lessons to people, you know? So, like, finding the universal truths in these kind of experiences comes from finding the universal truths in these experiences comes from I guess, you know, you have to accept that the setup isn't universal. So you have to think, you know, what am I experiencing that could be extended to other games and other experiences and other ways of playing and other ways of interacting. But I guess you have to remember to look beyond the one specific game that you're playing, you know? I guess talking aloud is a good opportunity for these sort of half-formed thoughts that I've not thought all the way through. Like, I know there's something there, I know there's something interesting to be discussed there. I don't know what to actually conclude from it yet, and I guess what you're seeing as I'm talking aloud while playing these experiences is, you know, it's the thought process at work. It's, this is me, you know, thinking through the ideas as I'm getting the stimulus, but not necessarily coming to the conclusions, and maybe that's for you to do. As a viewer, to figure out, you know, what have I actually discovered through this, or what have you discovered through this, and maybe I'm not seeing it. Maybe there's something that you're seeing watching this that I'm just not aware of because I'm too far inside the experience. And I mean, if you do see something like that, I'd be curious to hear it, you know. I'd want to find out what the process of watching these is like. I mean, that was some good freaky stuff. That's so yeah, I feel like I've come up with a kind of, I guess, a coping strategy, which is to focus on making groups of 3. And I came up with that fairly early on in the experience, and that has been, like, that has been pretty effective. I'm having to concentrate really hard on this because everything is dark and everything looks the same. And he's just launched an attack, and that's probably going to be enough to kill me, so hey ho. I think there is something interesting in the fact that, like, because you can see what the computer player is doing on the other side, and what the computer's player is doing is basically it's playing without the mod. You know, it's not a conscious being, but it is performing the same way that it would if the mod weren't active. And that's, I don't know, I just think that's kind of interesting. You don't get that in the Sonic mods, where, yeah, the game acts the same way, but, you know, the game is kind of inert, you know? Everything moves deterministically in Sonic, you know? In that, you know, it doesn't simulate a human being, it simulates a landscape. In Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, your computer opponent is what you're playing against, rather than, you know, the level, rather than the terrain, rather than, you know, enemies that move back and forth and that. You're playing against something that pretends to be a human being. So it's kind of like playing against a stupid human player. Yeah, I say stupid, you know, a human player that's going to be playing with very specific, very kind of limited set of strategies. playing against the computer player is like a player who has basically playing without the mods but isn't very smart. So a player who can see everything for the colours they really are, can identify between the different colours instantly, but is programmed to be a limited amount of clever. I'm someone who is an expert at this game, but I don't have all the stimulus I need in order to play properly. And I don't know, but that's a kind of interesting way of looking at it. You know, that me and the computer opponent are two kind of versions of playing the game. Not in many ways you would see similar things, although I guess if I was playing against a human opponent and we're both playing on separate screens and mine had all the colour turned off and theirs didn't, you know, they could see everything, would we have the same experience, or would we have a different experience? Like, in that, would I be forming different strategies because I'd be thinking about how they're acting as a human player? I'm not thinking about how the computer opponent plays. I am kind of playing, the computer opponent in this case is a thing that happens. You know, I'm not looking at their screen, even though, you know, I wouldn't be able to read it very well now, but like, it's not even crossed my mind to look at my opponent's screen for information. So I'm kind of playing in my own bubble. If I was playing against a human player, would I be more aware of them, or would I still be in my own personal bubble? Have I done something? I did something good! I guess one of the big differences on this difficult, you know, in these harder stages now, is that you do have less time to react. You know, you don't have the time to figure out what colour this is, and find something that it matches. You're kind of having to do that instantly, and it's like, what do you think it looks like? What do you think it looks like? So this is quite a nice setup now, in that I can see the differences between most of the colours, not all of them. Oh dear. That's not good. See, I felt like I was kind of almost doing well there, and then it all crumbled down. So I've been playing about an hour. I'm going to give myself 3 more lives and then call it a day. But this has been thought-provoking. I mean, if there has been one thought that sprung to mind, it is that, you know, I did develop strategies for this, and those strategies were different to the strategies. They were not a version of playing normally. The strategies I came up with were a coping mechanism that allowed me to win in spite of the changes, rather than being like you know, gave me a shot at winning in spite of the changes, rather than being like something that enabled me to play and think in the way that I would normally play this game. I guess that's kind of interesting. You know, I can't think about combos anymore, so I play in a way that allows me to win despite not thinking of combos. And I guess it just so happens that that way of thinking sometimes wins. But it's not like in a way, I'm not winning intentionally. You know, in a way, I'm playing in a way where I'm playing in a way where I try to make the possibility for a win without necessarily, you know, actually playing to win. So I'm playing that I might win. Playing so that I may win by accident, and that's very different from playing to win. Okay, so there's a set of beans now that are literally invisible. It's the junk beans, I think. But there does seem to be a kind of difference in texture, and that, again, I flute my way to victory if I do win this. I flute my way to victory, you know, just from playing within the coping strategy, rather than playing to win. Right, okay, so I managed to beat that guy. I think I've done quite well to get all the way to stage 10, so I'm going to have one more go at this and then call it a day. So thank you very much for playing. Wish me luck. That's quite good. I mean, that's less good. Ooh, now those are some colours, right? Yeah. Okay, one more attempt. Come on, wish me luck. Oh, those matched. Wow, okay, this is a difficult set of colours to work with. I've gone very quiet because I am concentrating very hard. No. Down I go. Well, thank you very much for playing. I hope you've enjoyed this. This has been quite an experience. But I don't know, I feel like I've learned something out of it. I've got something out of it. Surprised at the kind of strategies I've managed to find in there. And yeah, kind of curious to think about, you know, what does that imply? Is there something that we can learn from it? Is there something we can draw from it? Honestly, I don't know the answer to that, but I guess we'll find out. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you all have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.